Welcome to the Sleepy Hearth Library. Today, we'll be telling the story of the traveler and the inn. This is a quiet, cozy story meant to be listened to slowly. Nothing here needs your full attention. There's no rush, and nothing you need to remember. It's a story about warmth, about shelter from the night, and about resting somewhere safe for a while. So get comfortable. Let the day soften and fade. And when you're ready, we'll begin. Chapter 1. The rain had softened everything. Not just the road, but the night itself. When the traveler reached the inn, the world felt rounded at the edges, as though sharp things had learned to rest. The building rose from the roadside slowly, its stone walls darkened by water, each block holding the day's cold without complaint. A lantern hung beside the door, its glass fogged slightly from the damp, casting a wide, honey-colored circle onto the ground below. Rain slid from the roof in a steady line, dripping into a shallow groove worn smooth by years of weather. The traveler stood beneath the eaves, listening. From inside came sound, not noise, but life. Low voices, the soft knock of wood against wood, the faint, steady breathing of a fire. The traveler raised a hand and knocked once. The door opened almost immediately. Warmth spilled outward, thick and welcoming, carrying the scent of smoke, bread, and something gently herbal. "Well," a voice said kindly, "you've arrived just in time to dry off." The innkeeper filled the doorway, solid and calm. You notice his apron marked by years of use. "Good evening," the traveler said. "Evening," the innkeeper replied, stepping aside. "Please come in. That rain looks determined." The traveler crossed a threshold. The door closed behind them, and the rain faded into a distant murmur, as if the world had been gently wrapped in wool. Inside, The inn glowed. The hearth set low and wide along the far wall. Its fire banked carefully, embers glowing like buried stars beneath slow-moving flame. Thick wooden beams crossed the ceiling overhead, darkened by smoke and age. Their surfaces smoothed by centuries of warmth. The floorboards bore the gentle scars of use. Small dips, shallow grooves, places where countless feet had paused and turned. Tables stood scattered through the room, each one worn silky at the edges, catching a candlelight in soft curves. Near the fire, a woman with silver-threaded hair sat wrapped in a shawl, her mug cradled between both hands. She looked up and smiled, the lines around her eyes deepening. Storm finally convinced someone else to come in, she said. I was starting to think it meant to keep us to itself. A man at a nearby table lifted his cup slightly. Still plenty of night left, he said. It hasn't finished arguing. The traveler removed their cloak slowly. The fabric released the faint scent of rain and road as it was hung near the door, where drops fell softly onto the stone below. Boots followed, set near the hearth, their leather already beginning to warm. The innkeeper passed a towel across the traveler's hands. Fire's been waiting all evening, he said. Knew someone would need it. A chair near the hearth was drawn back. It was a simple chair, its back curved by years of use, its legs steady and patient. Sit, the woman by the fire said, shifting slightly. Warm travels faster when you stop moving. So the traveler sat. Heat spread upward immediately, first to the feet, then the legs, then deeper still. The fire responded with a gentle crackle, a log settling into place. A bowl was set down on the table, thick pottery, warm to the touch. Steam rose lazily, curling and thinning as it met the air. Bread's fresh, the innkeeper added, setting a small loaf beside it. Thank you, the traveler said. They wrapped their hands around the bowl and felt the warmth travel slowly, steadily, as if though the room itself were breathing it into them. Conversation moved gently through the space, never loud and not to demand attention. Someone spoke about the rain. Someone else answered about the road. Mugs were lifted and set down. The firelight shifted as candles flickered, casting long, slow shadows that leaned and stretched across the walls. Above it all, the ceiling beams held steady, as they always had, keeping warmth gathered and safe. The traveler listened without trying to follow every word. The room carried them. "Rooms are ready when you are," the innkeeper said eventually, his voice barely rising above the fire. "Up the stairs," the woman added, nodding toward the back. "Steps creak a bit, but they don't mind." The traveler leaned back slightly, the chair supporting them easily. "Not yet," they said softly. "It's good here." The innkeeper smiled. "It usually is." Outside, rain continued its patient work. Inside, wood, stone, and flame held the night gently in place. For now, nothing more was needed. Chapter 2. The moment to rise came quietly, not announced by anyone, not demanding fatigue, just a gentle knowing that the warmth of the chair had done its work. The traveler set the empty bowl aside and stood slowly, allowing the room to adjust around them. The fire answered with a soft shift. A candle fluttered, then steadied. "Take your time," the innkeeper said, already turning to bank the hearth for the night. "The stairs aren't going anywhere." The traveler smiled and nodded. They gathered their cloak from the peg by the door. It was lighter now, nearly dry. His boots were warm to the touch, leather softened by heat and rest. The woman by the fire lifted her mug slightly. "Sleep well," she said. "Walls like these remember how." "I will," the traveler replied, and found that they meant it. The staircase waited at the back of the room, partially hidden by a thick timber post. Its first step bore a shallow dip, polished smooth by countless nights like this one. The traveler placed a hand on the rail. The wood was warm, not from the fire, but from use. Each step rose gently, neither steep nor narrow, as if the builders had understood the needs of tired legs. The stair creaked once, then seemed to settle, accepting the traveler's weight. Lantern light followed them upward, casting slow-moving shadows along the stone wall. With every step, the sounds of the common room softened. Voices thinned into murmurs, fire into breath, until there was only quiet. At the top of the stairs, the upper hall opened wide and still. The ceiling lowered here, beams closer, holding the warmth gently in place. A single lantern hung from a hook in the wall, its flame steady and calm, casting a pool of amber light along the corridor. Doors lined either side, each one solid and plain, their handles worn smooth by generations of hands. The floor beneath the traveler's feet was covered by a long runner, woven thick, soft enough to hush every step. The air smelled faintly of clean linen, old wood, and the quiet trace of smoke that had long since made itself at home in the beams. Somewhere behind one door, someone slept. Not loudly, just the gentle rhythm of breath finding breath again. The innkeeper's voice drifted up the stairs, soft and unhurried. "Second door on the left," he said. "Window faces the yard. Quiet side." The traveler moved slowly down the hall, counting doors without effort. The second door waited, its surface marked by small scratches, the sort of scratches left by rings or keys or time. The traveler took a moment to pause there, not from hesitation, but from appreciation. There was something reassuring about the way the door stood, solid, unassuming, patient. The traveler turned the handle. The room welcomed him without ceremony. A bed stood against the far wall, its frame simple and sturdy. Blankets folded neatly at the foot. A small table sat beside it, holding a candle and a shallow bowl of water. The window was narrow, and its glass slightly uneven, rain tracing thin lines down its surface. Looking outside, the yard lay quiet. Dark earth, a low stone wall, and the faint outline of trees beyond. The traveler set their things down carefully. Cloak folded, boots gently placed by the door. They sat on the edge of the bed and just let the stillness arrive. The mattress dipped gently beneath their weight, not too soft and not too firm either, but just right. The traveler stood once more to draw the curtain partway closed. The rain whispered against the glass. The traveler blew out the candle, and so darkness settled. Not complete, the lantern in the hall still offered a soft, distant yellow glow beneath the door. The traveler lay back and pulled the blanket up slowly, feeling its weight anchor them in place. The bed creaked faintly and then was still. Above, the beams held, and below, the fire rested. The inn breathed around them, quiet and sure, and sleep, patient and unhurried, waited close by. Chapter 3. The room settled slowly, not all at once, but in layers. The traveler lay still for a time, feeling the bed take its shape around them. The blankets resting with a gentle weight that asked nothing in return. The rain continued outside the window, a soft, steady presence, not loud enough to intrude, not quiet enough to disappear, just there. Each drop traced a thin path down the glass, meeting others, joining and slipping out of sight. The traveler listened to the rain without trying to count the sound. There was no rhythm to follow, no pattern to hold, only the assurance that the night was busy with its own work. The candle by the bed had been left unlit. Darkness filled the room kindly, never pressing too close. From the hall beyond the door, a faint glow remained. Lantern light softened by distance, resting like a held breath beneath the frame. Somewhere below, the hearth shifted. A quiet sound, wood settling into embers, and then stillness again. The traveler breathed in and out, each breath slower than the last. Thoughts drifted in, then wandered off again. Small, unimportant things. The feel of dry boots by the door, the sound of a chair being pushed back downstairs, the way the innkeeper's voice had carried calm without effort. Nothing lingered long enough to form a memory. The night did not ask for reflection. It only asked for rest. The rain changed its tone, not stopping, just softening. What had once been a steady tapping became a gentle whisper, as though if the sky itself had grown drowsy. The traveler turned slightly on the mattress. The bed answered with a quiet creak, then returned to silence. The blanket shifted, settling again across shoulders and chest. And so warmth remained, reliable and patient. Time loosened its shape. Minutes stretched thin, then folded back on themselves. The traveler no longer wondered how long they had been there. There was no need. The room held them the way old places know how, without comment, without expectation. The walls did not listen. They simply stood. From somewhere nearby, a sound of sleep reached the traveler's ears. A slow breath and a pause and another breath. It could have been anyone, and it could have been no one at all. The sound blended with the rain, the distant fire, and the quiet creak of wood cooling in the night air. All of the sounds moved together now. The traveler's thoughts grew softer, edges blurred. Images formed briefly, firelight on stone, steam rising from a bowl, lantern glow on worn steps, then faded before they could settle. There was no dream yet, only the gentle space before it. Outside, the rain continued its work. Inside, the inn rested. And somewhere between the two, the traveler drifted. Not quite asleep, but not quite awake. Just held quietly by wood, by stone, and by the long, unhurried night. There was no clear moment when waking ended and dreaming began. One simply softened and then softened again. The traveler no longer felt the bed beneath them, no longer noticed the rise and fall of breath. Those things continued, but somewhere far away, as if they belonged to another room entirely. What remained was a gentle awareness, thin, loose, unattached. The dream opened into quiet space, not darkness, but something wider. A place where sound traveled slowly and light had learned patience. The traveler stood in a vast room filled with shelves. Books stretched upward, far beyond what could be counted. Their spines muted in color, browns, creams, soft greens, and edges worn smooth. Candles floated gently in the air, their flames steady and untroubled, casting slow, moving light that never quite reached the corners. No titles could be read. No letters asked to be understood. The books were not meant to be opened. They were simply there. The traveler walked, though the movement felt optional. Footsteps made no sound. The floor beneath them felt neither stone nor wood, only solid enough to exist. As they passed, dust motes drifted lazily through the candlelight, rising and falling, like breath made visible. Time felt different here, not slow, not fast, just unconcerned. The library faded gently, not disappearing, but becoming thinner. Shelves blurred into tall shapes, then into outlines, then into suggestion. And suddenly, the traveler stood outside. Snow fell. Large, soft snowflakes, moving downward with no urgency. They landed on rooftops, on lantern tops, on quiet streets that curved gently through a small village. Windows glowed faintly from within, each one holding a private warmth. No voices carried through the air. No doors opened. The village slept deeply. The traveler walked again, leaving no footprints in the snow. Lanterns lined the street at long intervals, their light amber and calm, casting halos that overlapped only slightly. Somewhere, a clock chimed once, low and distant, not marking an hour, just reminding the night that it still existed. The sound faded quickly, absorbed by falling snow. The dream shifted. Now there was an open field. No fences, no paths. Above it hung a sky of the color of deep blue cloth, stitched lightly with stars. At the center of the field stood a single object, an hourglass, tall, clear. Moonlight passed through it, illuminating the sand inside as it moved from one chamber to the other. Grain by grain, the traveler watched. There was no concern about how much remained. The sand did not hurry. It did not pause. It simply fell, because falling was what it did. The hourglass dissolved. The field softened. And suddenly, there was only warmth again. Not heat, but closeness. The sense of being surrounded by something old and steady. The inn returned briefly. Not as a place, but as a feeling. Wood holding warmth and stone remembering fires. Walls doing their quiet work. A voice appeared, not words, just tone. Low, even, kind. It carried reassurance without explanation. The traveler did not try to follow it. They let it pass through them like air. Images continued to surface, each one lighter than the last. A kettle steaming gently, curtains stirring without wind, a road seen from far above, curving peacefully through hills. None of it stayed long enough to become important. Meaning never arrived, and nothing was lost because of it. The dreams grew thinner now. Images no longer formed clearly. Only impressions remained. Soft light, gentle motion. the absence of urgency. Thought itself loosened, unwilling to keep its shape. And so the traveler drifted deeper, beyond the edge of dreaming, into sleep that asked for nothing at all. And the night continued, wide and patient, content to hold everything quietly, until morning decided to arrive. I'm glad you were here tonight. If you'd like more stories like this, you can subscribe to the Sleepy Hearth Library and return anytime. Until then, sleep peacefully.